Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's random album review. We've got to go ahead and pick the album first. It's Brett's turn. By the way, the only reason we're actually doing this random pick is because nobody left a request for us. So get the requests coming in, and we won't have to do the random album pick. So, Brett, can you see the screen?
I can indeed.
So I'm going to press rerun. I guess that's the button to press. Yeah. And see what comes up. Okay, so Brett, you've got a choice of Pink Floyd, The Wall, Dixie Chicks, Home, and Amy Winehouse, Back to Black. Now, am I right in thinking we've reviewed all of these artists? I think Pink Floyd we did before we started the channel, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
But the other two we've done on the channel.
That's correct. Was it Back to Black, the album we did?
But the album, name of the album, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So that sounds awful because we really should know.
You know what? I'm pretty sure it was.
I think it was as well.
Yeah, it was. It was that one. Because it was the one that didn't have her famous song, the one that I quite liked.
Yeah, the Valerie one. Yeah,
yeah, Valerie. So
that one there. And obviously Dixie Chicks. It wasn't that long ago we did the Dixie Chicks either.
But we did their latest album, the Chicks.
We did the Chicks, of course.
So this is a different. This is a different album. There's an older one.
Yeah. Oh.
So we're going to have to rule out Back to Black. So we're left with Pink Floyd, The Wall, or Dixie Chicks, Home.
I think I'm going to go for Pink Floyd, The Wall. Only purely, and I know Dixie Chicks was different to the Chicks, only because they were more recent from there, really. Even though I kind of enjoyed Chicks there at the time, but I know we both had sort of mixed feelings with Pink Floyd. I know I preferred them a lot more. And this is obviously one of their famous albums, The Wall. I'm going to go a limb here. I think there's one song of theirs that you do know, which I believe will appear on this album. That's Another Brick in the Wall. You know that one? That does appear on this album, if that fills you a bit more hope with that there. But yeah, I'm going to go for the classic Pink Floyd's album, The Wall.
Okay, so The Wall it is by Pink Floyd. I can't remember what we listened to when we actually did Pink Floyd back before we did doing the YouTube. Did we listen to this particular album? I honestly can't remember.
I think we listened to Dark Side of the Moon potentially when we did it last time. But again, that was a real long time ago. I couldn't be there for sure, but it definitely wasn't The Wall, so it is a new different album with that there. I think if it was, it may have been Dark Side of the Moon we may have done.
Yeah. Okay, well, it is what it is. I'll go into it with a what's the word?
Open mind.
Open mind, yeah. Go into it open mind, and hopefully it'll be all right. So we will go off and listen to it, and you'll see us again in a few seconds, where we will give you an in-depth review. So we've now listened to The Wall by Pink Floyd. Brett, it was you that made the pick, so do you want to go ahead and tell everyone what you thought of it?
Yeah, I'll make my apologies now in case my intro bit goes a bit waffly. So, Lee, if I do go too much off tangent, then feel free to rein me back in. Also, I think I might give you a little bite of what you could probably put as a little thing on the YouTube video title. Yeah? The question might be, is this an artistic masterpiece? So the reason I say that is that this is more than just an album, isn't it? This for me, it felt like a movie. It could have been like a movie, and actually there was a lot of elements of like sort of theatre type thing, elements to this here. It's really frustrating for me because my dad actually is a big Pink Floyd fan, but I've never really managed to get into Pink Floyd. I've always liked, there's a few of their songs of them I've known, I've always liked, but in terms of really getting into them, I've always found it hard to do, and I don't know why, because they are very talented. They, you know, do things a little bit different. They are quite unusual and quite good at what they do. But yeah, I just struggle to really enjoy as much as I probably should do. But saying that, this is why I'm struggling. This is why I was apologizing a little bit waffle, because I think in some regards this is a fantastic album, but it should be classed as an album. It should be classed as something totally different. And we know we've talked about concept albums before, and this is a concept album. I also wouldn't say made the mistake, but in the past I would never normally look into the album, what it's about, because I actually knew very little about the album The Wall. I knew a couple of songs on there. But it wasn't until after I listened to it to see what the sort of the album and the story it was telling was all about. In hindsight, I kind of wish I knew, if I'd actually seen that before. I think it may have changed my opinion of the album potentially. But I said there was a lot going on, and I said it's telling the story. There's a couple of songs I didn't like from it. But there's also a lot of elements that I didn't quite enjoy. And hopefully, as we go through the songs, I probably feel we won't go too much in details about the songs and what they represent. I think if people know it, they'll know it. And we might go into bits of it, I guess. But I say it's a really hard one to really sort of get my feelings across how I feel about it. I think overall, to shorten it, I really wanted to love it. Felt I didn't. Did I enjoy it? Yes, but in parts. Did it have a bit more potential to it? Yeah, and I think it's something that we've spoken about before. I think for people who enjoy Pink Floyd in this particular album, you had to be there for it at the time period. It's to me to really appreciate it. I think you had to be there at that sort of time, if that kind of makes sense. So hopefully that was very waffly, I know, and appalling for me. I get it. But I said it's a really conflicting one, and probably what the album's like. How I'm feeling is what the album probably gave the opinion of, really. So I'll hand it back over to you, Lee, and see what you can put across from there, really.
I got a feeling this could be possibly our longest ever album review. It's quite a lot to talk about. So maybe surprisingly for you, I actually quite enjoyed this album. I thought, we had listened to Pink Floyd before. Even though they're extremely well-known band, I wasn't actually familiar with their music. So we did do, before we started YouTube, as I've already mentioned, I think we did do one of their other albums, which is a very famous one. I can't remember the name of it. I'm sure you know it.
Yeah, Dark Side of the Moon we did.
Dark Side of the Moon, yeah. As I said, before YouTube. And I remember not liking that. It was very psychedelic. This, however, this album wasn't psychedelic. And that's a major plus for me. I didn't like that whole psychedelic feel. It just felt weird and just didn't like the sound of it. This was also weird, but in a much better way, I would say. So I've made some notes here, some brief notes. It was continuous throughout. Like, as you said, it's kind of like watching a movie or something. So for me, it's not the type of album where you judge each song. I don't know. It's like for most of these, there are some that are kind of longer, that are kind of proper songs. But in a lot of cases, it's like once you take one of these tracks away on its own, okay, it doesn't really mean that much. I don't know. I just feel like you have to kind of go listen to the whole thing in order, obviously, not jumbled up in a random order. I really enjoyed reviewing it. We've done albums before where, particularly like dance albums and stuff, where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to type for my notes. It's just don't know, it's like it's repetitive. And with this, it wasn't like that at all. This was very kind of enjoyable to actually review. There's made quite a lot of notes for each track, so I certainly enjoyed it from that point of view. And like I say, it was just generally quite enjoyable. Now, in terms of the meaning, it would be very easy for me to go onto Google and type in what is the meaning of Pink Floyd, The Wall, and I would have got, a proper description and explanation. But I haven't done that. Now, you said you have done that, so you'd be able to explain what this is about. I kind of didn't want to do it. I wanted to kind of see if I can understand it for myself in as much detail as possible. So we'll be able to talk about that as we go through it. So let's begin then. So the first track was In the Flesh. This was a long instrumental, a kind of spacey voice, as in like, up in space. Found it quite dramatic. It actually felt like the end of an album rather than the start. That's kind of the impression I got from it. If this felt like it could have been an outro to an album rather than like an intro. But that was, I think with a lot of these tracks, I'm not really going to say, did I like it? Didn't I like it? I'm more kind of just going to just sort of explain what my own observations were or what my ears kind of felt, kind of thing. Like I say, it's not the sort of album where I can say, oh, I didn't like that track, but I like that one. Just kind of got to appreciate the whole thing as one for me.
So I was really enjoying. So one of the same sort of points I made here, I didn't say exactly this felt more like an outro tune rather than intro, but for me, it didn't feel like an intro track. I was actually quite surprised how straight into it went. Normally, I'm used to Pink Floyd songs really being quite quiet. They normally have tailed off from a previous song normally, but it normally has sort of a quiet and it slowly builds up, and then has their sort of what we call like classic sort of Pink Floyd guitar riffs, instrumental bits there. But this felt like I went straight into the song, into there really. I thought it was all right. I just found it was a little bit boring towards the end, and then obviously we had the sort of sound effects. And what I do like a lot about the Pink Floyd songs that, especially with this album, as we said, it's one whole thing put together. How it goes from one track into the other. So I'm not going to say for every single track going forward, but how it goes from one to the other is really interesting there. It's going to be hard to sort of explain the sort of meaning behind the songs because again, it's a whole sort of bigger story, and I'll try and say bits of it as we go through some of the songs and be interested to see your take on it without knowing anything there. Because like you, I did the same where I wanted to try and do it and see what I could get from it before having to look into it. But what I will add just very quickly with this album and the concert that's really so fun was that they famously, on one of the concerts I saw, the one they did in Berlin in 1990, they actually physically built a wall during this concert when they were performing this whole concert, this whole album. And as they were doing it, they're actually building a wall throughout the whole thing and then sort of knocked it down right at the end. So I just thought I'll throw that in there now, just as we go through other bits as well.
The second song was The Thin Ice. So we heard a baby crying at the beginning, which is something I quite liked from this album in general. There was like, you had quite a lot of kind of background noises and sounds and people speaking and stuff. Kind of like a soft, low sounding singing voice. And then the big old instrumental came in a little bit later on.
Yeah, well, like this one, this was that sort of style of actually not singing, and it's almost sort of telling sort of the story going through. We also had a piano sounds playing a lot, and it's interesting. I know normally you don't like the sort of weird sounds that are going on, but I think for this, like I said, it's building this whole sort of album story, putting it together really. And what's up here? And then we obviously had the classic. Again, I won't say them too often because it comes a lot. What I call the classic Pink Floyd guitar riff going off there, and that's what I'm saying at that point. From there,
so then we had Another Brick in the Wall Part 1. So this is obviously their real famous song that even I was aware of this, despite not really or not being a fan of Pink Floyd. But this was in 3 parts. This was part 1. So I noted down, I like the song. I like the song. I know it, but this is like a kind of really slow build up compared to what I'm used to, like the radio edit. But at least the sound was familiar. So kind of, yeah, it's like not what you'd hear on the radio, but the same kind of sound to it, kind of building up. But it turns out that the main part would come in part 2, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've heard of part 2 and I've listened to part 3, but for some reason, don't know why, I've never researched it. I've never heard part 1 before, and I quite liked it. I like the different vibe to it there. I actually put here, it sounds a bit like Eye of the Tiger, the sort of beat at the start. So to give a little intro about sort of the story here, so this is about a young boy who is going to become a famous pop star, and the idea is that he's slowly, having this wall built around him, not physically, mentally, to keep himself sort of back to Wayfair. So this first part, because we hear about the wall being all throughout, is obviously this is about his dad. So some of this story is actually loosely based on one of the band members in Pink Floyd. So there's elements of there. So this is about his dad's either dying in the wall, so somebody he didn't have a good relationship with, so he had a sort of relationship with his mum, and that's just talking about sort of this start of this wall being built up around this young person called Pink.
So then we had The Happiest Days of Our Lives. So we had a helicopter, a different kind of voice, and a sudden change in sound. Is all I've got for that one.
Yeah, so again, really enjoyed sort of the helicopter sounds from here. Again, this is really short, sort of mixing stuff in. I can't remember exactly what this was related to, the happiest days of our lives bits here. But I said this is all a point where, his dad's now gone and actually has died in what's meant to be the Second World War. So again, because I don't want to get it wrong in terms of the happy state, like whether he's happy that he's started to pass away, or this is just now his relationship now starting to build with his mum eventually, which will come onto which is in a couple of songs time from there.
Then we had another brick in the wall part 2. So as soon as this came on, I kind of realized this is like the main part of the song that I know. It's a classic. It's hard to dislike. I like the children singing or kind of chanting in the background that you can clearly hear. And I think I read as well, did do a little bit of research, and I think I'd heard it before, as this story, where I think the children possibly sued Pink Floyd to do with this song. I don't think they realised exactly what they were getting themselves into. I'm not sure the exact thing, the exact story, but and I think it's the children were from a school in Islington, North London, as well. So yeah, kind of a bit of background information. Not that I really know much about the story. I didn't really pursue it, but something along those lines.
Okay. Yeah, I did actually know that part of there, so seems quite interesting from there. But yeah, there's not a lot we can say. If you know the song, you know the song. If you don't, if you haven't heard it before, go and check it out. It's a good song, and like I said, it's great now knowing fitting in the story that it's all about here. So in really short high. So now this is him at school, and obviously not getting along with the teachers, and again the teachers and the things that are going on in the students in Pink's head now. And like I said, these are just now more bricks are being built up onto his wall. That's gonna close in on him eventually.
So then we had Mother, which is what you were talking about a couple of songs back. So I just wrote down here, what's this? It's like an acoustic. This like threw me off completely. It was just a sudden kind of change. Like usually with these tracks, they kind of, what's the word? They kind of like go from one to another, slowly kind of change into something else. Whereas this one was kind of quite a dramatic change. And then it had like a loud, eerie noise in the background. Then the instrumentals kind of started to rise, become louder. And then it's kind of really taken off. But what I liked about it, it kind of basically the beginning of the song was completely different to the end of it, but it didn't happen instantly. It kind of slowly kind of built its way up, almost like kind of unnoticeably. And if you actually, like I said, if you actually compare the first 30 seconds of the song, the last 30 seconds is like going to be a huge difference. So I quite like this one. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I also really like this one as well. As you said there, you know, it had this sort of acoustic feel. It just didn't feel very Pink Floyd
No.
in some regards, which is unusual because generally with most people that I'm familiar with, apart from Another Brick in the Wall, which is probably the most commercially popular one down there, it's always, you know, that psychedelic, eerie kind of weird sounds happening and weird lyrics, and then some sort of guitar riffs there. But like I said, this was a real sort of change from there. So yeah, I did like it in that sense. And I said this is, as I said earlier, his now relationship about with his mother, strings on there, and again, it's still kind of linked about his dad's being in the war and passing away, and the relationship his have with his mum really.
So up next we had Goodbye Blue Sky. So we had birds chirping in the beginning, kind of mysterious sounding, a kind of ooh, ooh, ooh sounding I've written down here. High-pitched Goodbye Blue Sky. And I, like I said, I hadn't done any research, but I've kind of got a question, which I guess you've already answered really. The question is it about war? Because I can't remember what the lyrics were, but I heard something and it sounded like it's like a war, something related to the war. And I think you've already mentioned about the Second World War, about this guy's dad dying. So I guess it wasn't a kind of about the war.
Yeah, as you said that, and that's what it is. Is that it's still carrying on part of that story, where I think this is meant to be sort of the end of the war bit now, and now he's going to start getting on with his life. But I said this war was still sort of building up with everything that's going on in his head. Again, I really like this one. Again, it didn't feel. It's really weird. It felt really relaxing, but you could tell the sort of dark undertone behind it. It really got you thinking. Yeah, it sounds all peaceful, like, but you can just, whether it was the lyrics or something else, it was just really hard to explain, or the other weird harmonizing voices, felt like a real sort of dark undertone to it as well in a strange way. But as a song, yeah, I said I actually quite liked this one as well, actually.
Okay, Empty Spaces. Quite heavy instrumentals were noticeable from the off. Voice feels dissatisfied with something. I couldn't really make out the lyrics too much, but a kind of slightly angry, frustrated, dissatisfied voice is all I've got there for that one.
Yeah, all I sort of really put for this one here, again, I think maybe sort of quite quick somewhere, it started to feel like a proper sort of rock opera concert type thing. And like I said, I kind of knew already this was a concept album beforehand, so I knew it. But I said, something with this song, it's starting to really feel it. And I said, as we get more further into the album, I think that shows a lot more. You've got this sort of theatre kind of, it's going not psychedelic as I think you said. It's kind of just in this sort of weirdness as it goes along. So I think this was kind of the start of it from there. Again, in terms of the meaning, I said it takes a bit of a jump here, so I don't want to say it to get it wrong. I could bring it back up on my note on the website I found it from. But I said this is now him now slowly becoming going into becoming a famous rock star. But I said he's still having these issues, and this war is still building up. And I keep repeating it, but it's just, and this is what it's meant to sort of representing this whole thing.
Okay. Then we had Young Lust. So a loud voice from the start. The singing voice was more prominent in this one than some of the others, in the sense of you could kind of clearly hear what he was singing about. This one felt like very American rock. So, you know, Pink Floyd, right? Are they British?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I thought they were. So this one felt particularly American, American rock I've put down for this one. So, and a lot has changed since the start of the album. So we've kind of come quite a long way from the beginning in terms of the actual sounds and the feeling of the movie, should we say, if we can, as you kind of mentioned, it kind of felt like a movie. Interesting.
It's definitely as long as a movie, this whole album, to be fair. Yeah, so I also put the same. So I've got here this sort of 70s rock feel. I didn't go sort of down the American route, but it definitely had that sort of rock pop 70s feel there. So again, whether this is meant to be that reference now to him, this character Pink, you know, becoming this rock star, this is, you know, him performing, or, you know, that's what it could be in case of there. And again, we've gone back to this sort of classic Pink Floyd sort of guitar riff, and but like I say, it didn't feel as psychedelic as some of the previous stuff that we've listened to before of theirs.
And we had One of My Turns. So this was about a huge house, presumably in America, because it was American accents. Kind of sounds haunted. Then it was like an unexpected singing voice. The lyrics were very clear and audible. And then in terms of the meaning, these are question marks, I'm just kind of wondering, is it about like falling out of love? Possibly. And then the song really took off, you know. Found it quite peculiar, unusual, but it really grabbed my attention.
Yeah, so I put this one quite similar to Goodbye Blue Sky, where even though it wasn't as relaxing as Goodbye Blue Sky, it had these two vibes to it. Yeah, it felt like, for me, like you could listen to it one way and you could hear more sort of a dark side to it, or listen to another way and just hear it just as a song stuff there. So it felt sort of a lot going on, and again, really got the sort of musical feel to it. In terms of your sort of questions about, you know, love, possibly, potentially. But like I said, this is also more due, like I said, this is wall building up on him, and it's, like I said, it's coming close to the end of this wall being fully built in his mind and stuff. So yeah, it could have been elements of that linked to it as well as part of it. But again, I couldn't confirm that.
We had Don't Leave Me Now. It's had a slow start. You could clearly hear someone sleeping or possibly just breathing in the background. Very slow singing, slow instrumentals. And again, same kind of question. Is it the end of a relationship? It's kind of the vibe I was getting there. I'd probably normally say something like this is boring for me, but because it's part of a long story, this basically the whole, you know, this whole album, this whole side to the album, it kind of feels intriguing, showing a lot of emotion, and the instrumentals finally have taken off, but in a more conservative way, not like real heavy rock stuff, but just kind of fitting in with this particular song, but just in a kind of, you know, it's taken off a little bit, basically, not too much.
Yeah. So we've spoken in the past, I think, with a lot of albums, we've talked about like interludes, and obviously this album is full of these sort of interludes from there, these sort of short tracks, which again normally be like, what's the point? Or no, normally like to think, well, what's the point of it? I don't. Yeah, but like I said, it kind of helps with this sort of storytelling from here. I said in terms of what I could say a lot about the song, not a lot, but I said it just had this sort of nice sort of peaceful feel, but also this underlying thing. That's why I said it was quite interesting to know more behind it, to get this idea that obviously, yeah, this guy's going through some mental I don't know what the right word, but you know, it's a form of depression, effectively. Like I said, it's this wall now building up around him here now. Again, whether there's another love interest involved with that there to help that again, I can't answer. I don't know. But yeah, like I said, it's just a nice song to help tie all these other songs all together as part of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Then we had Another Brick in the Wall, Part 3. This was very short. It was just nice to hear this again, just the sound of it, you know, familiar. That's pretty much all I've got to say on it.
Yeah, I said it's the same sort of thing. I say it's nice to have, and we've done it with another album as well. We have the sort of the regular song that you can sort of associate to help build a source story coming through. Like I said, I had heard part 3 before. I've always liked it, and said I've said one lyrics here. I don't need no drugs to calm me. So we're going to get a bit of the drugs feel sort of coming along from here, really. And I said this is now him really coming to the end of everything that's going on. It's just all getting too much for young Pink here, as we come on nicely to, well, not so nicely to the last song.
So yeah, it's called Goodbye Cruel World. So just an ending with a very light, sort of very light music and a nice calm singing voice. So first of all, I thought, is this the end of the relationship, or is it something else, as in like suicide? Maybe that's what it was all about the whole time. When I was thinking maybe something about a relationship with somebody, maybe it was actually all about struggles in life. So yeah, that's kind of my question to you.
Yeah, so what I've just brought it back on my phone because I didn't actually make notes of stuff. Because generally, it's weird because normally when we do these album reviews, it is about the music and the tunes and stuff, how I feel. But I think for this one, I suppose we have to really, because it's, you know. So just to go back, so lots of stuff about the songs previously. Yes, there is reference to about his wife, and now he feels trapped, and that she's going through some troubles as well, infidelity sort of stuff there as well. And now Goodbye Cruel is actually him. This is now Pink actually completely isolating himself from absolute all human contact. He's fallen into full depression, and now this wall is completed around him, and he doesn't want to have contact with any other humans, including his wife.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the end of the first side, part 1. So next up, then we had Hey You. Sort of a calm sounding song so far, and the instrumentals started to get going, and the singing's got louder. It's still a nice sounding song, but now the instrumentals have really taken off. So with this particular song, like with most of these tracks, as I said earlier, I'm not really kind of judging them individually, but with this one I kind of have. So I like the normal singing part when it's kind of quite calm and soft, the kind of maybe the non-typical Pink Floyd parts, we could call them maybe, but not so keen on the hard instrumentals, just because I'm not a big fan of those particular sound. You know, I don't really like hard sort of rock or anything like that. So yeah, partly liked it, partly didn't.
Yeah, I sort of agree with all the sort of points that you put here, and I think it's now sort of stage where the tunes are right, and I'm trying to pick up more sort of on the lyric side of things. So it's like lyrics like "Can you help me" and stuff, and I think you're getting this sort of feeling from that as well. We do then also have the classic Pink Floyd guitar riffs bits there as well, and like I said, just felt really more sort of emotional at the end. So this is meant to be in reference now. Pink's now sort of questioning his decisions, and now starting to now locked himself in his hotel room, thinking what is he going to be doing with himself here, which again comes on now to the next song there,
which is there anybody out there? So kind of had a scary start, so it sounded a bit kind of haunted. Quite like this actually, just sort of quite calm, playing a few strings as I've just put down here, nothing too heavy from what I remember. So that was all right, that.
Yeah, so this got sort of, in terms of now a different kind of classic Pink Floyd, where you've got sort of the surreal sounds happening from there. Before I didn't, to me, I thought there was sort of a space theme to this one here for some reason. Anyone out there, just and because you had the sort of what could to me felt like being like in space kind of sounds from there, really. But I said just also, what I've said with some of the other tracks, had this sort of relaxing feeling to it, but you couldn't help but feel that undertone or whatever message was coming from that, really. But again, it's just a nice sort of interlude to bring on to the next songs,
which is Nobody Home. So we heard some screaming and shouting in the background, but it actually had a nice calm vocal start, nice sounding instrumentals. I've got a question here. I thought it was quite good, this song, by the way. But why is nobody home? Like, what exactly is the meaning of this? What does it mean? Nobody's at home.
Yeah, like you, actually, I put sort of a little smiley face question mark. I actually quite like this one as well. So it's weird. So it says here about sort of things now turning to his possessions for comfort. And this is what this song is meant to be, isn't it? And he's yearning for the idea of reconnecting with his personal roots and stuff. So whether, you know, he's shown way so much far away from everyone that he can't, like, knows what there, but it's not distinctly saying like trying to get back home and no one's home from there. So it's again just this disconnection he's done from people that he knows in his head, really.
Then we had Vera, and I think if I haven't looked at the lyrics, but I'm pretty sure he said at the beginning Vera Lynn. Oh, Vera Lynn, I'd heard of her, so I looked her up on Wikipedia, and she was very popular during the war. It was nice, this, but it was very, very short.
Yeah, I think that was Merry Christmas. This one, this was a short, and there was a couple of other. I don't know if we've done them already or we'll come on to them. Really short ones where I was like, oh, I wish these were. There were some longer ones which thought, oh, you know what, they could have been a lot shorter, and some of the short ones thought they could have been a lot longer. And this was one of them. This was a sort of a really nice song, and as you said, that yeah, Vera Lynn, a big singer during sort of the war, so she sang, and I think they even quoted it in the song there. We'll meet again. That song there. And this is now Pink's now is having flashbacks to about World War II. And this is sort of about the people demanding that the soldiers return home, which again comes on to linking into the next song.
Yeah, next one is Bring the Boys Back Home. So again, I've asked the question, is this about the war? Like, I was still, because I hadn't done any research, I was still kind of really know exactly what this whole thing was about, but it just thought, you know, bring the boys back home. It's surely like bring them back home from the war. We had a marching band as well, which is quite something different to this album. That was quite enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this game is before I'd done video scopes, so we had that Vera Lynn song beforehand, and then this one as well. But like I said, I couldn't get the connections all together, and I said that's why I said at the start of the video, like, would have been good to, or at least go back to listen to it, knowing sort of the story and why some of these war bits. And I said he's now his flashbacks whilst he's in this sort of strange states that he's in, really. I don't think there's much else to I think this is probably quite a short song from what I remember. And I think, yeah, all this one here, yeah, you can hear in the background actually sort of bricks and about the wall, it being put into the wall and stuff. So, yeah, I said just a nice interlude song to tie things over.
Then we had Comfortably Numb. So I can't remember. I haven't written down the length of these songs. I think it's one of the one of the longer ones, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think this was over 5 minutes, this one.
Yeah, so it's just quite a nice song, this one, actually. Easy to listen to. And it was a proper song. Like, a lot of these tracks we've heard have been kind of like interludes, as you've said, or just kind of just quite short. This one felt like a proper song that you could actually just listen to on its own without the rest of the other tracks. So that was quite a rarity. It was too rocky for me though towards the end, but for the most part, it was quite a good song.
Yeah, so this is actually one of Pink Floyd's release songs.
Okay.
One I actually knew already. It's actually, you may I don't know if you recognise it. You probably wouldn't because it's such a different take on it. But the Scissor Sisters did a copy of this song, like a dance sort of version of it, and you wouldn't recognise the two together. But yeah, I've always quite liked this song as well, and it's interesting because you kind of listen to it, and I feel it's one of those classic Pink Floyd songs you feel like you need to be on drugs to really probably enjoy it or appreciate it. So I'm glad you kind of liked it, even without having to be on drugs. And this is what this song is about here. So in the story, Pink is now being found in his hotel room by some of his band members or people he works with. They have to now, paramedics need to inject him with drugs to make sure he can actually perform on the show and stuff. And again, it's really interesting having this sort of, again, it's a very relaxing, apart from when you get to like the more sort of rocky bit before then, the really relaxing song, but yet has a sort of undertone to it. And even, comfortably numb, we normally think numb is actually normally a negative, so you don't want to actually ever feel numb, but this was actually showing actually there's comfort in feeling numb in this particular situation. So like I said, it's just these two conflicting feelings. If you listen to one way, you can get something, and then listen to another way, which I quite like for a lot of these songs here already. But yeah, I've said I knew the song, and it would be one that would go into a potential playlist if I was doing one.
Yeah, the next one is The Show Must Go On. So this one took my attention before listening to it, because there is a well-known song. I think, is it called the same name, The Show Must Go On? Oh, it's got those lyrics in it. And but then I realized this can't be that song I'm thinking of, because I realized I saw it was like 1.5 minutes long. It's impossible. It can't be that. You know the song I'm talking about? The show must go on. Whatever.
Yeah, it's by Queen.
That's Queen. Okay, see, I don't even. I'm not into these kind of classic rock groups, so I didn't know that. But like I say, I realized it wasn't going to be that particular song just because it was about 1.5 minutes long. But anyway, as for what it was quite soothing. That's all I've put.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a nice interlude song. I think it finished by the time I even had a chance to put pen to paper on this one. But yeah, when I saw the show come on, I initially thought of that Queen song straight away as well. Now, whether that played in my head for a couple of songs down the line, because there were a couple of songs that did sound quite like Queen. But to bring it back to Pink's story, so as I was saying before, people found him in the hotel room, and now they've obviously injected him with drugs, so he can obviously go back to perform. Hence, the show must go on. They need Pink to get on there and do his stuff.
Mm-hmm. Then we had it In the Flesh. So it's had a very kind of rocky start, long instrumental, but it kind of now feels like heaven. It's like some kind of like peace. The singing starts after about 2 minutes. And what was interesting about this one was the lyrics, like really unexpected words. Like I think it was talking about, are there any queers in here? Are there any queers in here? And he mentioned about Jews. Then they were like, he's a coon. Just really kind of taken aback by the kind of quite racist, offensive, lyrics there.
Yeah, it seemed like everyone got offended in that one there. The gays, the Jews, the blacks, the druggies, people with bad skin, with acne skin. And he said he just wanted to kill them all. So just to put some context in it, in case you're thinking, what do I say? He's now hallucinating. So he's now on these drugs, and now he's performing. He now thinks he's a neo-Nazi, effectively. This is what's going on now. Whether this obviously has its links to the Second World War stuff, so it's sort of, like I said, it's all really complex kind of stuff going on. But yeah, he thinks he's a Nazi, hence why he was saying about those things about those people and wanted to shoot them at the end of it. So he managed to get to offend a lot of people in just a 2-minute song there. But that's effectively what's happening to Pink at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then we had Run Like Hell. So a good instrumental start. This was quite unusual because I actually preferred the instrumentals in this track to the singing. I wasn't so keen on the singing in this one, whereas usually I prefer the singing to the instrumentals. I'm not a big fan of not a huge fan of the kind of rocky instrumentals, but this one was better than the singing for me.
Yeah, I put here, this was actually quite a head boppy type one. And I said whether we had the title of The Show Must Go On before was in my head, but this one felt a lot like Queen. Which also do, sort of rock operatic type thing. But I said this is interesting because normally Pink Floyd, we said before, more psychedelic. This was more sort of, felt like more like Queen, more like a pop rock type thing, not what I normally think of with Pink Floyd from there. And just quickly into the story. So yeah, he's already offended all these ethnic minorities. And now this is him running to head towards London, as we'll probably get into the next song. So he wants to start a rally, a Nazi rally, to get people on board with his views.
Mm-hmm. So the next one is Waiting for the Worms. We heard lots of voices in the background. It's all about concentration camps, fire the oven, Jews. So yeah, some quite disturbing lyrics. In terms of the sound, I thought part of the song sounds nice, the kind of heaven dreamy part, but again, wasn't so keen on the heavier instrumental parts.
Yeah, so this is starting to have that sort of psychedelic kind of feel to it. Yeah, and this is, I was thinking, what is really going on? And just I couldn't, even predict to think what is Worms meant to represent something else. They're realizing now, I know he's hallucinating, and now it's all this was there. But I don't know if you picked up on some of the lyrics. So they talk a lot about some not iconic, they're highly iconic London situation. But he talks Brixton bus station. Stockwell Road. Where else was mentioned that I didn't put down here? There was a couple other places as well, I think. So that's all part of London. So not iconic, but different places in London. Like I said, he's hallucinating with all these, now worms are sort of appearing in that one there. So yeah, really sort of strange song. But like I said, it just helps with this sort of strange film story that we're kind of listening to.
The next one is Stop. I think it's the shortest track from memory. It's at 30 seconds. So my question is he guilty? He's guilty of what? Like being a Nazi? Because again, don't forget, I didn't know what any of this. I haven't looked at the actual meaning of this, so I didn't. But now you've explained it, that he's hallucinating, and that he was. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so it's effectively now Lucas is now kind of stopping, and he wants to stop things going on. Thinking, what is great? Just wants things to stop and go back to normal. Mm-hmm. But even for such a short song, I actually quite like this one. There's another one I said, oh, if only this one was a little bit longer, it would have been quite interesting to listen to.
So then we had The Trial, which was effectively a court case. What was interesting about this one? This was almost like a play at the theatre. I know kind of most of this album, a lot of this album has kind of been in that theme, but particularly this track. This felt like you could just be sitting in what do you call it, at a play in the theatre, actually watching this on stage. It was sort of very slow, dramatic. At 3.5 minutes, the heavy instrumentals got involved, and then there was like a big explosion.
Yeah, exactly what you saw for me. I just put a number of times, sounds like a musical. Being a theatre show, this is really, again, nothing that I would have thought Pink Floyd would have been really sort of like from here. And again, but mainly when I was going, what is really going on? What is this trial about? Why is Worms keep still being mentioned? And but anyway, yeah. So it's still sort of the end of this sort of, and he's still feeling guilty. He wants forgiveness. And effectively once this wall has been built up around him in his head to finally come down, and whether the lead worm judge is actually going to allow that to happen.
So the last track then is Outside the Wall, a very soft singing sound with some faint background voices. That's all I've got for that, and that's the end of the album.
Yeah, as I put here, sort of a nice sort of ending to an album you would have thought from there. And as you could probably now have told you a little bit more of the story, the sort of ending, I think, Outside the Wall coming down, him sort of now hopefully going back in the right direction and living like how he wants it to be from there, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the whole album reviewed for you. So, like I say, I kind of surprisingly enjoyed this. I wasn't really looking forward to it. Just, I guess, based on the fact that I'd already listened to that other album. What's it called again?
Dark Side of the Moon.
Dark Side of the Moon, which I didn't enjoy. However, saying that, I wouldn't actually mind just listening to that again. Maybe I've changed myself a little bit. You know, since listening to that album, Dark Side of the Moon, we have listened to a lot of different genres of music. So maybe I've adapted a little bit as well. But yeah, like I say, for me, it was a really enjoyable album to review. Particularly, it was kept me on my toes. I was like, okay, what's happening here? What's going to happen next? It was like an ongoing story as well. So I felt quite immersed into it, I guess. Even if like some of the actual sounds, like I don't like any kind of, as I mentioned before, I don't really like heavy instrumentals like rock. But to be fair, it was only present in parts. You know, it was quite a mix of things going on. So yeah, quite enjoyed it. And if we do ever get Pink Floyd cropping up again with a different album, then I'll be quite looking forward to, listening to it.
Oh, you know what? It's quite cool to hear you sort of say that from there. Like from the start, I still feel it now, even though I've seen quite positive of it all. I generally do, and I said it's a real hard one. So very conflicting because like I said, it can't be treated like an album like we've normally listened to before. I said it's almost in a league in itself, really. But I said now I've gone through and seen exactly what the story's about. I said I would like to go and listen to it again. I'll be actually more intrigued to maybe watch one of the full concerts of the Wall concerts. Maybe have, if there was any visual, I don't know if there's any lot more visuals of it as well to try and get a bit more of that feeling to it there. So yeah, like I said, a really unique album. And it's funny, I did mention this at the start as well because I think I was waffling too long. But even when it came out, it did have sort of critical mixed reviews as well. I think over time people realise it's a classic in its own right. But I think when it first came out, I think it was even a little bit too maybe ahead of its time in its own sense, really. So I still feel quite conflicted about it. But I said I would be happy to listen again. Maybe, like I said, see the concerts, enjoy that. But yeah, some good aspects to it, and also other aspects I just found a bit weird. But I've said maybe it's because I needed to know the whole story behind it in the first place.
Okay, so yeah, that was pretty long. I think we've covered pretty much everything there. So let us know your opinions. Do you agree with us? Do you have a different opinion? What was the question you posed at the beginning? Did you say, is this a visual? No, what's the word? Artistic masterpiece?
Artistic masterpiece, yeah.
Yeah, so let us know what you think about that. And if you've got any other album requests that you want us to listen to, either by Pink Floyd or any other artist, then just let us know. You'll also have the chance to appear on our channel with us, the legends of music album reviews. So big opportunity for you guys. Big proud moment. So let us know. And I think that is pretty much it from us. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon for the next one. Peace.